I haven't filmed in a week and I can't talk anymore. Great. Hello plant pals and welcome to another video. My name is Kenna and I'm so excited to have you here with me today. Today I am not filming the video that you guys voted on last week and I'm sorry. I will film that video soon, I promise. I unfortunately just didn't have time to this week. The video you guys voted on was the self-care plant care video, and unfortunately I don't have time this week for self-care, at least not that I can sit down and film with you guys. So I am gonna go ahead and film that video another time. Today, however, I figured I would go ahead and film a video for you about one of my plant collections. Since you guys seem to love my Hoya collection video so much, I'm gonna go ahead and film a Monstera collection video, as I'm sure you guys saw from the title. I don't have quite as many Monstera as I do Hoya, so it won't be quite as long as my Hoya collection video was, but I might talk a little bit more in depth about each individual plant. There are a few of them. Actually, I think I have 6 Monstera in my collection, unless I'm missing one, which is always possible. So if you like this kind of video, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up, grab your mug of tea, and let's get into it. All right, so I wanted to start with this one. This is the plant that's usually up behind me over there. And this is my Monstera Peru. Monstera Peru is a plant that can be grown either vining, trailing, or climbing. I did decide to have mine trailing because I do kind of like it, having it up there, filling that little bit of white space. And it actually fits really, really well right there. And because this is a south-facing window, it does get a good deal of light. And that was kind of what my concern was with this plant. I have a lot of climbing plants. I have a lot of big climbing plants. And because I have so many climbing plants, I'm kind of running out of room for any more. Now, is that to say I will stop buying climbing plants? Probably not, because let's face it, I love plants, and that's why you guys are here, I'm assuming, is because you love plants too. And it's hard to just pick a few. It's hard to, hold back when there's some really, really beautiful plants out there. So maybe I will continue to purchase plants, but I'll also try to be a little bit more mindful. But this plant in particular, like I said, can be grown vining or climbing. I did decide to go ahead and grow it as a climbing or trailing plant. I'm gonna try to show you guys its length without hitting the ceiling fan. I have actually cut this plant back. I did give a couple cuttings of it. I haven't filmed in a week and I can't talk anymore. Great. But I have given a couple cuttings of it to one of my friends because it was getting a little bit leggy, and I know that if I cut it back, it'll kind of bush out a little bit, or at least that is my goal. So far, so good, I think. I mean, there's definitely new growth on it. However, part of it is my fault because I do underwater this one quite frequently. And actually, when I got it down to film today, it needed water. So if it looks a little thirsty, that is why. It has been watered, I promise. But Monstera Perus are actually one of I think the few plants that would be recommended for like a low light situation. If you look it up, Monstera Perus are said to be able to live in lower light. And like I said, this is a south window. I really don't have this plant in low light, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of plants out there that are recommended for low light. Snake plants, ZZ plants, things like that. They do fine there. However, the problem is usually those plants don't grow in those conditions. So you might have them stuck in a dark corner somewhere for a while and they might live, but they're not gonna be happy. And while Monstera Peru might live in lower light, and medium light honestly would probably be fine for this plant, it is a plant that does need a little bit more light to grow. So up here on this shelf, it is just out of line of being in direct light. Even with these kind of gauzy filter curtains, I still call it direct light. It's as direct as my house really gets, aside from grow lights. So because this plant doesn't get any of that direct light, I would probably categorize it as a medium light situation, which is what I would probably recommend for this plant. It seems to do really well in it. And even though I don't pay a ton of attention to this plant, and I think it probably shows just in how, you know, a little bit leggy it's getting, or maybe a little bit sparse, I think if I trimmed it up, it would probably look a little bit better, but I really like it trailing. I like how beautiful and big these leaves are, and they're so textured and wrinkly. They're just a really cool leaf, and I'll get a little bit closer so you guys can see, hopefully without getting dirt in my tea. These leaves are just a really cool texture. They look really interesting, just kind of unique. I think that's actually what I really like about Monstera is that philodendron, and I mean this in obviously the broadest sense because philodendron have so many different varieties and shapes and colors, and they're beautiful plants and obviously some of my favorites. However, philodendron don't have as much variety, I think, as Monstera do. Monstera, while they can be maybe a little bit more temperamental, I've definitely heard people say like they have trouble with Monstera, which, you know, there are gonna be plants out there that are gonna be a trouble for everyone. I don't do particularly well with Calathea, for example. And there are a few other species like Syngonium that just are not my cup of tea. I don't do well with them, but I seem to do okay with Monstera. And they have so many different types and shapes and textures and sizes that I think, not knowing that all these were Monstera, I wouldn't guess that they were necessarily related. So this one in particular, like I said, is just really cool, really unique. You don't see a lot of leaves like this. In fact, I really can't think of anything off the top of my head that has leaves that are this textured, this thick and glossy, and just really cool and unique looking. So this is a really nice plant to add to your collection. I did get this one, if you guys can see from the pot, from a big box store. So they are available in big box stores, at least near me. And I would recommend it. It's been really easygoing. It's endured neglect well, which I love in a plant. So I really like this one. And this is my Monstera Peru. All right, and next up, just to show some contrast between our last plant, Monstera Peru, and the next one, I'm going to insert some footage here because I am absolutely not lifting my giant Monstera over to this chair. But I hope you guys are seeing this footage of this big, beautiful Monstera that I have. I'm going to be looking out over the corner here because that's where this Monstera lives, is in this south-facing window right over here. And it is a really big, beautiful plant. And again, one that has taken a little bit of neglect from me. I have not been the most mindful of plant parents lately. You guys have probably heard me say it in a couple of my videos. I am taking summer semester classes. I am in college. I'm a part-time student. And the part-time status in the summer is a little bit questionable. I go to classes 4 days a week, and I've been extremely busy. Because there's been so much going on and I have so much kind of stuff in my brain right now. I have had very little space and time to be able to care for my plants, and my Monstera definitely has been taking a hit. My big Monstera Deliciosa. It's one of those ones that you see a lot in like magazines and pictures and like lifestyle type of situations. It's really common. You see it a lot in Home Depot and Lowe's, and I think probably even a grocery store sell them. But it's still one of those classics. It has really, really big, beautiful green leaves. The fenestrations can get just really dramatic looking, and mine is growing vertically. You can have them grow kind of outwards. And they look beautiful either way, honestly. I wanted mine to throw out some bigger leaves, so I do grow it vertically. And it's kind of growing wonky right now because of the way that I have it facing the light. So a bunch of the leaves are pressed up against the window, which looks kind of funny, but you know, it is what it is. I probably will switch my plants around when I have a little bit more time on my hands. But my Monstera Deliciosa has been a really steady plant for me. While it doesn't grow very quickly for me at times, which again, it's my fault. I probably could give it a little bit more water every now and then. It still is a plant that takes a lot of beatings, and it still just keeps running. I haven't really had any major issues with it thus far. I think its biggest issue for me is that it collects dust like you would not believe. I do have a corgi, as you guys know, little Ridley, and his hair collects on these leaves like crazy. So I do have to take it outside pretty frequently just to kind of give it a good wash down, and I do actually need to do that, so it is up on my list of things to get done. But it's a really cool plant, really reliable plant, easily accessible, which makes it a really great beginner plant as well. I think it was one of the first house plants that I bought when I moved into this house. I only had a few plants because my previous living conditions did not really have any good spaces for plants. A lot of low lights, you know, all of the windows that faced good directions. Like I had a west facing window that was completely covered by trees, so I didn't have a lot of light coming in. And the plants that I did have really suffered for that. So, you know, it's kind of one of those situations where I just didn't have the ability to have a lot of plants, and I didn't have grow lights yet, so I didn't have any sort of supplemental lighting to offer. But when I moved in here, one of the first things I did was buy plants. So I think the Monstera was one of my first, and I think it's one of the oldest pictures I have up on my Instagram for sure. Like it's you know, going all over the place. I think it was kind of the before and after when I trellised it, but it's a really cool plant. I think it gets a lot of like flack for being boring or being one of those plants that everybody can get their hands on. But you know, I respect a plant that can grow that big and take up a good chunk of space in a good way. When you need to fill up a corner, a Monstera is a great option. It doesn't really grow in lower light, but it can live in lower light. So if you have a lower light corner that you just want a little bit of greenery in, Monsteras do well. And that's not to say that, you know, they might not lose a few leaves, but they'll still do okay probably. So I think the Monstera needs a lot more credit than it gets, or at least the Monstera Deliciosa anyways, but I really like mine. And again, I will throw in another little clip here. That way you guys can see what mine looks like. It's not the biggest by any means, it doesn't have the most penetrations, but I do still really enjoy it. All right, and the next Monstera that I want to share with you guys is my Monstera Dubia. So this one you guys have probably seen in a couple of videos. I definitely did a, I don't think it was my most neglected looking plants video or anything like that. I think it was just, it kind of popped up in like maybe a plant care video of some kind. Because I remember before I put it up on this little stake, I definitely showed you guys the pitiful situation it was in, and a few people recommended putting it onto a plank or some sort of, you know, stake situation, and I did. That was kind of my goal. I actually have it on a paint stirrer stick, and this seems to work really, really well. The only problem being that it has been outgrown. So this Monstera has actually grown, she's probably about 9 inches. Yeah, probably about 9 inches off of this paint stirrer stick. And after it's, you know, stopped getting support, it does start getting a little bit weebly wobbly and kind of getting smaller leaves and just kind of growing less reliably for me. So I would like to probably propagate this plant. That way I can get it back onto another stake here and give it a little bit more support again. I am actually quite impressed though. I mean, it went from throwing pretty small, weirdly shaped leaves like this little guy right here to giving me like actually not terribly sized leaves for the size of this plant. This plant was kind of a, I don't want to say rescue. The person who had it before, you know, was caring for it, and they were caring for it pretty well. It did get obviously some crisp kind of the bottom here, and that actually wasn't me. I will say I did get some crisping, but those leaves specifically were not me. But it, you know, wasn't necessarily rescue, but it wasn't in the best shape ever. And I did cut it back once when it started getting, I think it started getting like a little bit weird and like growing in weird patterns and ways. So I cut it back and it actually shot off a brand new vine from the bottom. So this is 2 separate vines here growing on this stake, and it's doing really well. I do have it inside now. I used to grow it in the greenhouse, now I grow it inside, and I just really like it because it's such a unique plant. It's nothing like the Peru, nothing like the Monstera Deliciosa. You know, it's one of those plants, like I said, that I would never have guessed belonged in the same genus, but it does. And I just really like it. It's really cool to see these leaves from the back, and I'm actually looking at them as I'm talking to you guys. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but these leaves are almost sparkly. They're kind of shimmery, they're kind of sparkly looking, and they're just really cool to look at. They're kind of hypnotizing. And this is one of those plants that will grow not in necessarily like a shingle kind of way, but they will grow like flat on a plank and grow flat up. And I would really like to grow it that way. I think that's my next goal with this plant, is to take some propagations, get it onto a plank and actually get it growing vertically, see if I can get some really nice big leaves. I have seen these fenestrated, and I will say I think that's probably the thing that joins a lot of Monstera, in my mind at least, is they can get some really cool fenestrations, and Monstera Dubia is no exception. They can get some really cool looking fenestrated leaves, and I would like to get some of those someday. But mostly what drew me to this plant was just, it's a very unique grower, and the top I think is probably the best example of this. Just that it's, you know, a little bit, like I said, weird looking at the bottom, but it has such a beautiful growth pattern, such beautiful and shimmery leaves, and I really like this one. I wish it was a little bit easier to get your hands on a nice specimen. I did look on Etsy. There are a few available. None of them look super great for good prices, it looks like. I don't know if it's that it's difficult to propagate, because I did try to propagate this one once. It did not go well for me. I also neglected those propagations though, so it might have been me, might have been the plant. We may never know. But it just was kind of difficult to get my hands on this one for a good price. I did end up getting this one in kind of like a bundle deal with my Adansonii and one of my silver swords. So, you know, it was actually a really great deal. It just wasn't in the best shape, and I was okay with that, and I still am. But I would like to make this plant probably more of a priority. I have given it a little bit of love, but not necessarily as much as it deserves. So I really like this one. If you can get your hands on one, I would recommend it. It's been really easy going for me, quite honestly, and it grows really, really well. Like I said, it's grown like a weed right off of this stake, and it doesn't need the stake to keep growing, though the leaves it puts out are nicer when it does have support. And I just think it's a really nifty plant. So this is my Monstera Dubia, one of my more unique Monsteras, and I really, really enjoy it. All right, so the next plant on my list is this one. This is my Monstera Adansonii. This is my plain green form, as you guys probably know very well. I also have a mint version. I am going to show that in this video as well. But this is my Monstera Adansonii green form, and I really, really like this plant. It is a very unique, cool looking plant. And again, I think that's just kind of typical of Monstera genus. I know that a lot of them have fenestrations, but other than that, like, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot tying a lot of the Monstera together. And this one is no exception. It has super cool fenestrations, really beautiful, just unique looking leaves. And this one is also a great grower for me. I've actually, again, this one has been through some stuff. It has had spider mites for a while. At least I think it still has spider mites. It's kind of difficult to tell. For whatever reason, the dust in my house does form webs, but this looks very spider mitey to me. I've been treating it for spider mites for a while, but I really, really, really need to just give it a good wash down. But I haven't had time. So it's been isolated on my kitchen counter, which gets little to no light for several weeks, and it doesn't care. It literally has kept growing. And while I do water it, make sure that, you know, it has water, it just seems to just keep doing well, whatever I do to it. I have forgotten to water this one before. It got a little bit wilty, but it didn't seem to mind. It's not sitting in light, doesn't seem to mind. It's a really tough little plant, and I wouldn't have guessed that by looking at it, to be quite honest, because it is a plant that has, you know, a little bit thinner leaves. It looks really delicate just due to the way the leaf structure is, but it's really not. It's a very hardy plant, and I have it growing not even on, I would say attached to this cocoa coir pole, or this coir pole, which I will be doing a video on the, you know, plant devices and plant stuff that you see advertised on like social media, coir poles being one of them. Spoiler, I have said it before, I will say it again, I hate coir poles. I really, really dislike this pole, but it is what I have, and I wanted to give this plant something for support. So this is what I'm using it for the time being, and it's doing it really well. It continues to grow, put out new growth, put out new leaves, no matter what I do to it. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. It's not a fussy plant in my collection at all, and it was super easy to get a hold of. It did come, I believe, from the Lowe's Valentine's Day collection or the Home Depot Valentine's Day collection. And you know, it was in a big box store. I saw it. I'd never really liked Adansonii before, but I kind of got talked into getting it by watching You Don't Even Grow Here and Unplanned Parenthood here on YouTube. And I never liked them before. I saw their videos and I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a chance. Maybe. We'll see what happens. And it was on sale, so I picked one up. And I don't regret it. It's just a cute little bushy plant. I really enjoy it. And if you don't have one, I don't know why not. I would recommend it to probably a beginner plant parent. It's been super easy care, really easy to keep happy. Aside from the spider mites, which even the spider mites don't seem to bother this thing. It doesn't even have any damage as far as I can tell. It just has some webbing, which is why I'm actually not even sure the spider mites are active, because I did release a few like predatory mites and different predatory bugs after the spider mites when I noticed the webbing originally. And it doesn't look like it's gotten any worse, but there was no damage in the first place, so it's really hard to tell. If you don't have an Adansonii, I do highly recommend it, especially if you are a beginner or someone that doesn't know how well you'll do with Monstera. This one has been very, very easy for me and I really enjoy it. So Monstera Adansonii. And this one is the next plant that I have that's Monstera, and I'm not going to talk too terribly long about it because you guys have heard me talk about this plant on end for a while, and I know that, but I still love it, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. This is my Monstera Adansonii mint. It is the mint variegated form of the green plant that I just showed you guys, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. It does have that beautiful kind of minty green spotty variegation. It's just very unique looking, and the leaves are a little bit more mature, I would definitely say, than the green version that I have. The green version is probably still a little bit less mature, has a little bit smaller leaves, though they do have more fenestrations. These have less fenestrations, but they're a little bit larger. And I would hold them up next to you guys, but I don't want to get the spider mites onto the mint form, so I'm going to restrain myself. But I really like this plant. It's a really cool and unique addition. I did get it from the plant dealer box that I am subscribed to. It was a Christmas gift, and I probably would say it's one of my favorite gifts that I've received in the past 2 years. I really do love it. But it has given me some really cool plants, this being one of them. This one actually is about to put out a new leaf. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see that little growth point coming in here. It's over here on the back. I hope you can see it because I am really excited about it. It's still way, way too small to be able to see if there's any variegation or what any variegation might look like on this plant. It is kind of one of those ones that after the leaves grow in fully, you can see the variegation much better, and after they harden off, you can see it much better. I don't think it's Polaroid variegation, which is the type of variegation that leaf grows in completely green and then develops the variegation afterwards. I think the Monstera Aurea perhaps is that type of variegation. I don't think the mint is the same, but it definitely does kind of grow, kind of mature as the leaf hardens off. So I really like this one. It is a little bit harder to get your hands on, of course, than it is the green version. You can't just buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's. I was lucky enough to get it in a plant dealer box, and I really enjoy it. I actually ended up getting both of them right around the same time, which is funny because I didn't think I would ever want even one, and now I have two and I love them both. So I do recommend this one. I don't think it's really any harder at all than the green form. I don't know how this one would deal with pests. Like I said, my green form seems to be pretty much bulletproof, but you know, I don't really want to test it out. So I just am going with it. This one has been super easy for me, a very easy grower. Hasn't gotten stuck, hasn't thrown a fit over anything, doesn't seem to really mind drying out a little bit. So overall, I would say if you are looking for a variegated plant, a variegated Monstera specifically, because I know they can be finicky, this one is a really great one. And again, this is my Monstera Adansonii mint, and it is just so cute and so cool, and I love it. All right, the last plant on my list today, and the one that kind of inspired me to do this video, is a brand new plant from my last plant dealer subscription box I have not gotten to share with you guys yet. My plant dealer subscription box did arrive last week, and as you guys know, I was very sick preparing for a test and felt horrible for almost 2 weeks. It was not a great time. I'm feeling, thankfully, so much better. But because of that, I didn't want to leave the plants in the box and I wanted to get them out, but I was sick and it was just not going to be a filmed event. So I decided to share it with you now. This is a brand new Monstera to my collection. I don't have any Monstera like this one. And I actually haven't seen a whole lot about it online. I don't know if that's because it's less popular, if it's less common, or what have you, but I think it's really cool. And I think this is pronounced Lechleriana. Yeah, it's the Monstera Lechleriana. And again, this is from my plant dealer subscription box. I did get 2 plants, which I will show the other one to you somewhere down the line, probably in one of my next videos or so. But this one is really cool. It actually is one of those ones, it looks like they took a cutting from it, and then they, that might have been a growth point. Unfortunately, this one, when it came in, is one of those ones that doesn't seem to have shipped very well. I don't know if that means it's not going to grow very well for me. It doesn't seem to really be having any trouble, but I always have some concerns. Anyways, though, it was looks like a cutting taken from it, and then it just threw out a whole new branch, kept going, and kind of curved. It's a very weird shape, I will give it that, but it's a really cool looking plant. I really like this like single fenestration in this leaf, and I'll show you guys up closer. That is what the leaf texture looks like. So again, different from the Peru, different from the Adansonii, different from the Dubia. If I had to pick a leaf texture that I think this was closest to, I'd probably say the Deliciosa. However, obviously not looking like the Deliciosa at all. It doesn't have those kind of heart-shaped baby leaves, and the texture is a lot different. It's not quite as smooth as the Monstera Deliciosa, but not quite as textured as the Dubia. It's almost as if they were crossed, and it really produced such a cool looking plant. Again, it seems to not have shipped very well. There is a little bit of browning on this newest leaf up here, and it doesn't seem to like being underwatered. I will say that. I did let this one get a little bit drier probably than I normally would, because when it arrived, it was pretty damp and the soil was extremely loose, which is nothing to say, you know, that the soil, there's anything wrong with it, or that the plant dealer didn't pack it well. They packed it very well. It's just a plant that has a little bit of soil gap at the top, so it kind of got a little bit loosened up in transit. And I think that probably contributed to it kind of arriving looking like it didn't like shipping, and it still arrived in great shape actually. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that it probably didn't appreciate being in a box, which I can't say many plants do, to be quite honest. Plants obviously like air circulation, humidity, light, and you can't really get that in a box very well. So I'm not going to place the blame on this plant at all, but it does look really pretty for having been shipped especially. And the leaves are just really cool looking. I think I have seen maybe one other person growing the Monstera Lechleriana, and I think I saw them growing it in a greenhouse. I don't remember who it was, but I feel like they grew it in a greenhouse. And I have an outside greenhouse, but I don't have an indoor greenhouse cabinet. And while I may like to get one day, today is not that day, and it probably will not be for some time. They are a little bit expensive, and I just don't have the ability to get one of them right now. So this one is just gonna have to tolerate room conditions. And my room conditions are not bad by any means. You know, I have humidity that's usually right around 50% in this room. And I do have a ceiling fan going above me, so I do have air circulation. And I did try to cluster it with some other plants. I've had really great plants shipped to me from the plant dealer. I've not had a single pest issue thus far. Not to say that it cannot happen. Pests unfortunately do happen to the best and most diligent of us. However, I have not had any issues, so I did feel pretty comfortable putting it right into my collection next to some of my plants that are on this window over here. And that was the other thing that I thought it could possibly be suffering from. I did have it, like I said, on this kitchen cabinet, or not cabinet, counter over here. and I don't think it liked less light, so I don't know if maybe this one's a higher light as well. I really need to do some research on this plant, to be quite honest with you guys. I've only had it for about a week, and all I can say about it thus far is it doesn't seem to like drying out. But I will definitely do some research on it when I have a spare moment. For now, I am just trying to give it a little bit more light and keep up on the watering and just making sure that I keep an eye on it. But I really like this one. I think it's really cool, and I am really excited to see what happens with it, quite honestly. I really like that the plant dealer boxes kind of push me out of my comfort zone a little bit, because there aren't many Monsteras out there that I would have intentionally purchased. But that's not to disparage the Monstera as a whole. It's just kind of my personal preference, and I think just not seeing them everywhere. Monstera are definitely one of the species that you usually see Deliciosa, either in the Deliciosa albo or the Thai variegated, or some of the new versions that are coming out. I think I've seen one called a creme brulee, which, okay. There are definitely a lot of them, and they're all seem to be focused on the Deliciosa. There's not a whole lot of attention and love for the other types of Monstera, at least not that I see a lot of. So I don't necessarily have that many of them on my wish list. However, this one, when I saw it pop up, I was really interested because it is one I don't see a lot of, didn't hear a lot about, and just wanted to kind of see what would happen. So if you guys do have kind of any comments, anything that you think that might help me in caring for the Lechleriana, please leave it in the comments down below. I would really love to hear it, because I do need maybe a little bit of guidance in the meantime before I can do my research. So this is my Lechleriana. I do really enjoy it, and I wanted to share with you guys how cute it looks, and I hope that it continues to do well for me, because I would be very sad if I didn't get to see more of these really cool variegations. Fenestrations. They're fenestrations. Alright guys, and that is it. I hope you didn't mind me bumbling my way through today's video. Like I said, I can't seem to talk today. Every time I try to open my mouth to say something, I trip up on my words. So it probably was in my best interest to keep this video a little bit shorter. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed getting to see all of my Monstera. I know I don't have many, but I think that I have a pretty good sampling of how unique the Monstera genus is, and I just think it's really cool. So if you like this kind of video, leave me a thumbs up, give me a comment down below. I would love to hear what some of your favorite Monsteras are, and I would like some ideas possibly on other Monsteras that you think I should add to my collection, because like I said, I don't have many, and while I would like some more, I don't really know which ones I would want to pick. So I would love to hear from you guys what you think I should add. And there is a subscribe button down there. I would really love for you guys to hit it. That way we can see each other more often. I would love to see you guys around. But I think that's about it for today's video. So thanks so much. Bye.